The church in Boston was filled with golden lights, soft music, and hundreds of smiling faces, but in the middle of all that beauty, my heart was breaking in silence. I stood alone near the back row wearing the same black suit I had saved money for months to buy. My hands were shaking not because of fear, but because of the words that had just been spoken in front of everyone. Her father-in-law looked directly at me and said with a cold voice that echoed through the entire hall, "You may have raised her, but today remember this. People like you should stay in the back where they belong." 400 guests went silent. Some people looked down. Some whispered. And my daughter, the girl I had raised alone in America, the girl who was once my entire world, stood on that stage in her white wedding dress, not saying a single word. At that moment, everyone thought I was just a quiet, broken father who would accept the humiliation and walk away. But what none of them knew was that the next 10 minutes would change everything, and the entire wedding would remember my name forever. 24 years earlier, life looked very different. My daughter's name was Scarlett Hayes. She was born on a cold winter night in a small hospital in Chicago. The moment I held her tiny hand, I promised myself that no matter how hard life became, she would never feel alone in this world. But life had its own plans. Her mother left when Scarlett was only 2 years old. One morning, she packed her bags and disappeared, leaving only a short message on the kitchen table. From that day, it was just me and my little girl against the entire world. Those years were not easy. I worked 3 jobs in Chicago. During the day, I cleaned offices downtown. In the evening, I worked at a small restaurant washing dishes. At night, I drove a delivery van across the city streets. Some nights I slept only 2 hours, but every morning when Scarlett ran into my arms shouting, "Daddy," all the pain disappeared. She grew up strong, smart, and fearless. When she was 12, she won a national science competition. When she was 16, she earned a scholarship to one of the best schools in Illinois. Teachers said she was one of the brightest students they had ever seen. I was proud of her every single day. But success slowly changed the world around her. At university, Scarlett met people from wealthy families. They drove expensive cars, wore designer clothes, and lived in luxury apartments. For the first time in her life, Scarlett saw a different version of America. And then she met Daniel Whitmore. Daniel was handsome, confident, and came from one of the richest families in Boston. His father owned construction companies across the country, and his family lived in a huge mansion near the harbor. At first, I was happy for her. Daniel seemed respectful and kind. He visited our small apartment in Chicago once and even thanked me for raising such an incredible daughter. But behind that polite smile, his family never truly accepted me. To them, I was just a poor immigrant father who had spent his life doing small jobs. They saw my old car, my simple clothes, and my quiet lifestyle and silently judged everything about me. Scarlett tried to ignore it. She said love was stronger than money and family reputation. 2 years later, Daniel proposed to her, and they decided to have a grand wedding in Boston. Scarlett called me one evening with excitement in her voice. "Dad, this will be the happiest day of my life, and you must be there." I promised her I would. For months, I saved every dollar I could. I bought a plane ticket from Chicago to Boston. I rented a small hotel room near the church. I even bought a new suit so I could look respectable among all the wealthy guests. The wedding day finally arrived. The church looked like something from a movie. Crystal lights, beautiful flowers, and hundreds of guests filled the hall. Luxury cars lined the street outside, and photographers moved around capturing every moment. I felt proud seeing my daughter walk down the aisle in her white dress. She looked confident, elegant, and powerful. For a moment, I forgot all the struggles of the past. But everything changed during the reception. Daniel's father, Richard Whitmore, stood up to give a speech. He spoke about family honor, business legacy, and the importance of reputation. Then suddenly he looked at me. His voice became colder. "In our family, we value class, tradition, and status. While Scarlett is a wonderful woman, we must remember that she did not come from our world." People began whispering. Then he added the words that burned into my heart forever. "She may have been raised by a hardworking man, but today she becomes part of a family far above that background." The room became silent. Some guests even laughed quietly. Scarlett looked shocked but said nothing. Daniel remained still beside her. In that moment, I felt 24 years of sacrifice being crushed under the weight of arrogance. But instead of shouting, I calmly walked toward the stage. The guests watched with curiosity. Richard Whitmore smiled, confidently thinking I would apologize or quietly accept my place. Instead, I took the microphone. My voice was calm but strong. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for interrupting, but there is something you should know before this wedding continues. The room became completely silent. I may not be rich. I may not own companies or mansions. But 24 years ago, when Scarlett's mother left, I made a promise that my daughter would never feel abandoned. I paused and looked at Scarlett. Tears were forming in her eyes. I worked 3 jobs. I sacrificed sleep, comfort, and sometimes even food so she could study in the best schools in America. Every opportunity she has today exists because of those years. Guests began listening carefully. Then I turned toward Richard Whitmore. You speak about class and status. But real class is not measured by money. Real class is measured by respect. Some guests started clapping quietly. But I wasn't finished yet. I pulled a small folder from my jacket. You see, Mr. Whitmore, your son Daniel has been working in a company called Hayes Innovations for the last year. Richard looked confused. Yes, the same company that recently became one of the fastest-growing tech companies in Chicago. The guests murmured again. Then I smiled slightly. What Daniel never told you is that the founder and majority owner of that company is me. The room exploded with shock. For years, while everyone believed I was just a delivery driver, I had secretly invested my savings into technology startups. One of those investments grew into a successful company worth millions. I never told Scarlett because I wanted her to succeed by her own effort, not by my money. But today I had no choice. I came here not as a billionaire, not as a businessman, but as a father who loves his daughter. And I will never allow anyone to insult the sacrifices made for her future. The audience erupted in applause. Richard Whitmore's confident expression disappeared completely. Scarlett ran down from the stage and hugged me tightly, crying in front of everyone. Dad, I'm sorry I stayed silent. I held her shoulders and smiled. You never need to apologize for loving someone. Just never forget where you came from. That day, the entire wedding learned something important. Respect cannot be bought with money. And the quiet man standing in the back of the room might be the strongest person in the entire story. Scarlett's wedding continued, but from that moment forward, nobody looked at me with